In the spring of 1948, a Bedouin goat herd was searching for his lost sheep amongst the caves overlooking the Dead Sea. And in so doing, he stumbled upon the greatest archaeological find in history, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, the Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest Hebrew manuscripts of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures, and they confirm the accuracy of the later Hebrew text. No other Hebrew manuscripts survived the Roman near destruction of Jewish life in Israel in 70 CE. The scrolls give us great insight into Jewish expectations of the Messiah at that time. For one, the Jews of that time felt that the Messiah would, quote, honor the pious upon the throne of his eternal kingdom, release the captives, open up the eyes of the blind, lifting up those who are oppressed, for he shall heal the critically wounded, he shall raise the dead, and he shall bring good news to the poor. Now contrast that with the words of Yeshua when John was doubting. Go and tell John the things which you hear and see. The blind see and the lame walk, and the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. So when Yeshua reads from the prophet Isaiah in Luke chapter 4, he's clearly saying, hey, I am the Messiah. Furthermore, it reveals that the Jews of Yeshua's time expected a Messiah who would not only reign as king, but suffer for the nation as well. For many decades after the scrolls were found, only the original international team of scholars were allowed to read certain scrolls. There are many theories as to why, but in 1991, Robert Eiserman, he went rogue and released copies of all the secret scrolls. He revealed, quote, the text is of the most far-reaching significance because it shows that whatever group was responsible for these writings was operating in the same general scriptural and messianic framework as the early messianic believers. In other words, they believed in a suffering Messiah, as Isaiah 53 foretells. The rabbis today say that the Messiah will not suffer, but the Dead Sea Scrolls disagree. The late Dr. Grant Jeffrey wrote that the scrolls, quote, contain fascinating information about the death of the Messiah. It referred to the prophet Isaiah and his messianic prophecy that identified the Messiah as one who would suffer for the sins of his people. The scroll provides an amazing parallel to the New Testament revelation that the Messiah would first suffer death before he would ultimately return to rule the nations, end quote. Clearly, the writer of the scrolls understood the dual nature of the Messiah. But the story gets even more amazing. But to hear that, you'll have to join me for part 2.